Hi guys, back in the shop again today. My name's Luther from Luther's Woodworking. We are going to be working on part 3 of making this wooden toy train. Let me just show you what I got here. I just want to review a few things that we did in the last couple of videos. The first video I did was making these wheelbases for all the cars. So if you watched the first video, you should have all your wheelbases made. On part 2, video number 2, we worked on all the parts that go on top of the wheelbases, the box car here, the passenger car, all these parts that go on top of the wheelbases, the gondola car. We worked on all them parts to go on top. Now what's left, part 3 today, will be working on the actual roofs that go on these cars. Like the engine here, he's got the roof right here. You got the passenger car's got a roof, and the box car's got a roof on it, and the caboose has got a roof on it with a little smokestack on the end of it here. So there's 4 cars that require roofs. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to build these roofs. All the roofs are the same size, except the one for the engine is a little shorter, but the rest of them are all this length right here. I got my sample block right here, 4 1/4 inches long for the box car, passenger car, and the caboose. And the one for the engine is 3 1/2 inches long. So we're going to head over to the table saw, and we're going to cut these parts. Like I said, everything's made out of a 2x4 or 2x6, whatever you got. And get started on making these roofs. Okay, here at the table saw here now, remember what I said, you got to cut off the rounded edge here on these boards, and I got one already cut off here. It's nice and flat on this edge. If you can see, it's nice and square. You're going to put that square edge up against your fence. Now I got my fence set 1 3/4 inches, that's how wide these roofs are. So I already have my fence set at 1 3/4 inches wide. We're going to cut us off an 1 3/4 inch piece on here, and this board should be plenty enough board to make 4 roofs, because we only need to make 4 roofs. So we're just going to run this through. Alright, so now we have a board exactly the width of a roof. Now what we got to do is just cut it into half-inch pieces here. So we're going to do that over at the bandsaw, because the tables, I think it's going to be a lot safer at the bandsaw, because otherwise you only got a little half-inch piece right here. So we're going to head over to the bandsaw and rip off a piece of this for the roofs. Get the bandsaw here. I already got my fence set up for the thickness of this roof, which is a 1/2 inch, give or take. It doesn't have to be exactly a 1/2 inch. So I already got it set up to the thickness. What we're going to do is run this board through and slice us a 1/2 inch thick piece of wood. Normally, if I was making a lot more of these, I'd probably have a bigger blade in my bandsaw. I only got a 1/4 inch blade in here, but it should work okay. We'll just give it a try here, but just got to slice a 1/2 inch piece off of this. All right, here at the bandsaw here. Now, you didn't see this. When I cut the last piece I had, because you're going to see it now, I got two pieces here. When I cut the last piece, I actually cut it with the width of 1.5 inches. And actually the roof is 1 3/4 inches. So you got to make sure you've got your boards set up right in the bandsaw. So I went back and cut some more pieces because I want the roofs a little wider than the actual 1.5 inches car. So you got to make sure you got your pieces at the right set right, so you're cutting the right side of the piece. So we're gonna go and cut these pieces again at 1/2 inch. I got this fence set at 1/2 inch, and we're gonna start over here. So I can get 3 roofs out of this piece right here. We're going to cut one more. Make sure you got your board orientated in the correct way. Okay, so now here we got 2 pieces, and we're going to end up cutting these to length to make the 4 roofs that we need. Okay, at the chop saw here, we need actually 3 of these roofs at 4 1/4 inches long. So I have a sample right here. I'm just going to lay it on here. I can just draw my line right across there. So we're going to cut 4 of these. And I can just take and keep on using that as a marker. Make sure you got your saw locked in. Okay, so we have the 3 roofs that we need for the caboose. I mean, for the the caboose, passenger car, and the boxcar. Now the engine one gets a little shorter piece. The engine is actually 3 1/2 inches, so we're just going to use that to mark 3 1/2 inches. Now we have the one for the engine. So we're going to head back over to the workbench and talk a little bit more about this. All right, back here at the workbench. Here we got the roof for the boxcar. Goes on right there. Here we got the roof for the passenger car. on that one. And then we have the roof for the caboose right there. Now the roof for the engine, that was the little shorter piece. We got the roof for the engine. And it kind of looked like that there. So we got the 4 roofs complete, except on the caboose. You're going to see on the caboose, let me show you. It's got a little smokestack on the caboose here. And because of making nice templates like this, you know, with the hole right here, all I got to do is set that on that roof. Take my marker and just mark a area right there. And that is actually where I'm going to drill a hole to fit in one of these axle pegs that I talked about before. I'll put a link below in the description where I get all these, but this is just an axle peg that's actually going to sit in this roof here. So we're going to drill this hole. Now, if you don't use these axle pegs, or if you use something different, like another size of a dowel, or if you find some other type of smokestack or something, you're going to have to drill this hole accordingly, or whatever size of item you use. I'm using this little axle peg right here. So we're going to head over to the drill press. I'll just drill this hole and we'll be right back. Okay, at the drill press here, we're just going to drill that hole for that smokestack. And that's all it is. That'll fit right in there. And it'll go probably right to the bottom of that. And that should be fine. We'll just glue that right in there. So let's head back to the workbench. All right, so we have our caboose with the roof, with the little smokestack in there. And if it's lined up right, that little dowel there is going to sit right on top of this block. You can just glue it in right like that there. If you can see it, this dowel is going to sit right on top of that block. You'll be able to just glue that right in. So we have everything done as far as the roofs go. The next thing, it's starting to actually look like a train now. The next thing you're going to do, we're going to work on this part right here on the engine, this little compartment on the engine, this engine part or whatever you want to call it here. That'll be the next thing we're going to work on. I do have a setup block that I use for my table saw to get these 45-degree angles on here. So that's something that I suggest you do. If you make a bunch of these, make yourself a little setup block, because it'll help you when you go to tilt your blade at 45. Everything will set up and work fine. It'll be a lot quicker than all the measuring. So we'll head over to the table saw. I'll get things set up, and then we'll start cutting that engine block. All right, the first thing you're going to want to do, this engine block is actually 1.25 inches wide. It's 1.25 inches wide right here. First thing you're going to want to do is set your table saw up 1.25 inches right here from the fence to the blade. Now I have a setup block here I used. I can just set that in there and set my fence like this here. And then we're going to take a piece of your wood here, using the flat side that you cut off from your 2x4, put that up against your fence, and you're going to cut yourself a piece. First, you have to raise your blade up a little bit. There we go. Now you have a piece of wood that is actually 1.25 inches wide. Now what you want to do exactly cut it to the height, which is 7/8 inches. The height of this block here is 7/8 of an inch. So you want to trim that down to 7/8, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the bandsaw to do that, because it's a lot easier over at the bandsaw. Alright, the next thing you're going to do, you got your piece here. I got my bandsaw set at 7/8 of an inch. That's how high that block is. So you take your block. Now make sure you got your block in the right way. If you put it in like this, that's not going to work. You got to have it in the right way, because this is the height, this is the width of your block, and this here would be the height going this way. So you want to run that through. So you end up with a block like this here. This is exact same, you can see here. This is exact same height. Now all we got to do is cut the angles off the edge of it, and you're going to have your engine block. So let's head back over to the table saw and cut them angles off the edge of this board. Alright, so I decided to use my router to do this little angle on each side of this engine block. You can do it on your table saw. I have, but I had my bit already set up in my router. You're going to have to figure out how much you want to take off this block as a 45-degree angle here. Just kind of design something. I just took off a little bit. I think there's probably only like 3/8 or something going up here. But once you get that figured out, make yourself a setup block like this here, because then you can just set your router up to that block, and then you can cut these all day long. So yeah, I think the router is going to be a little better for doing this. We're only making one. This block I can probably get 3-4 of them engine blocks out of here. So just get everything all set up, do a couple test cuts so you get it the shape you want it for your engine. And once you get that, like I said, make yourself a setup block, and you'll be able to cut these all day long. Alright, so I'm going to take my piece here, set it here. We're going to run this through one way, and then we're going to turn it and run it through the other way, and then we should be good to go. There's the first cut right there. And there's the second cut. There's your engine block right here. Like I said, I don't really have a pattern or a blueprint for this this train, just kind of set yourself up a block, get it the way you like it, make yourself a sample block, and you can set it up each time. It actually turned out pretty good. So we're going to head back over. Actually, we're going to head over to the chop saw because we need to cut one of these off for the engine. Alright, here we are at the chop saw. I have it marked. These are actually 1.5 inches long for the engine block. And like I say, make yourself a template right on the back. All my templates have the size of the piece written on the back or on the front. So we're just going to take this and cut us a piece off. And we're going to head back over to the workbench. Alright, here we are. We got our one engine block right here. You're going to see on here I have a smokestack that goes on top of the block, and I also have one of these axle pegs. One of these axle pegs right here in the front. That's actually a hole drilled in the front of this block for the headlight. So we're going to get them couple holes drilled, and we'll be back. Alright guys, we're still here at the bench. I want to just mention on this engine block right here, all I did was take a little Sharpie here, make a mark. That's where I'm going to put that headlight. And in the top here, we're going to put that smokestack that's on the engine here. That smokestack like this here, we're going to put that there on this top of that block. Now, I'm going to put a link below, and I've said this numerous times, where I get all these toy parts. If you decide to get something different than this to put for a smokestack, you're going to have to drill the hole the right size to be able to put that in there. This is actually a 3/8, it's hard to see here, this is actually a 3/8 tenon right here. So I'm going to actually drill a 3/8 hole on the top of this block here to set that in, and then I'm going to use one of them axle pegs to set that in here for the headlight. So we're going to head over to the drill press, drill them 2 holes, and get them pieces in there. Alright, here at the drill press. Now I got the right size bit for putting in this axle peg for the headlight. So what I'm going to do is just hold this with my clamp right here. I always use a clamp because these are small pieces of wood. So I like to use a clamp to drill in. And I'm going to drill in far enough so I can set this whole axle peg in without having to cut any of this axle peg off. Or you could cut it off a little bit if you wanted to. A little more yet. Alright, so see that? We got that piece drilled in there. Now, if I was making a whole bunch of these, I'd set my drill press at that depth and just drill all of them all at once. Now we're going to go on to the smokestack here. And that, like I said, this is a 3/8 tenon on that smokestack. But if you're going to use something different, a different type of smokestack or whatever different size, you're going to need to drill a hole, whatever size you need, to put that in. So we'll just change this bit out here. And we'll put a 3/8. I like using these Forstner bits. They just cut nice. We're just going to put a 3/8 Forstner bit in. And again, I'm going to hold this block with my clamp, and I'm just going to drill in far enough to probably a quarter of an inch or so just to get this smokestack in there. All right, I think that. Actually, I think that's all right because that smokestack is actually lined up with this headlight hole. You don't want to go down too far because you don't want that to interfere with your dowel that goes in there. So just whatever you decide to do or whatever you decide to use, just you can work it out, just whatever size hole you need. So we're going to head back over to the workbench. All right, back at the workbench here. Now, we have, and this is the engine that we did with all the parts on it. We have actually all the parts cut for this 10-car train. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to sand all these parts. You want to sand them so they're nice and smooth. All the roof and all the body part, engine, cab, all this stuff. I probably use about a 120 grit sandpaper on this. You want to sand all the corners, these sharp corners here. You want to get them smooth and get everything all sanded smooth around these edges of this tanker. The roofs. Just get everything all nice and smooth. Like here, I got this box car here. You want everything nice and smooth and sanded because kids are going to handle these toys. So what we're going to do is we're going to sand all these parts. And then we're going to come back. We're going to have them all set in here. We're going to sand all these parts. Because after you sand all these parts and you get them all set in like this here, the next step that we're going to do is end up painting all these parts. And you can see I don't usually paint the wheelbase. That I leave natural, but I'll end up painting all the other parts, the roof, the gondola, the tanker. I don't usually paint the stake car, and I usually don't paint the center beam car. But the rest of the cars we paint red, blue, green, whatever colors you want to paint them. But you want to make sure that you paint them before you glue anything together. That is the main thing, because once this is all glued together, it's going to be really hard to paint all these parts. But if you want to leave it all natural like this here, you can just glue it together. But the first thing we're going to do is sand this. I'm going to sand this off camera, get all these parts nice and smooth and sanded, and then we're going to be right back. All right, guys, we are back. We have everything all sanded. All these car parts are nice and sanded, nice and smooth around the edges. I use a belt sander on a lot of this stuff. A lot of it's hand sanded. And I do want to say my wife does all the sanding on this, so I'm not going to take credit for that. But everything's all sanded nice and smooth because children play with this, so you want everything, all the sharp corners taken care of and all that stuff. So here we got it all together. The next step we're going to want to do is you're going to decide whether or not you're going to paint this or just leave it all natural like this. Now you can see some of these other cars that I have back here. The engine I got painted the blue, red, and green roof here. Here we got the coal car that's painted black on top. You can paint these cars. Here's a caboose that we got blue with a green roof. You can paint these any color you want, and all we do is basically use this Ceram Coat paint in these 2-ounce bottles here. Or yeah, I think it's two ounce bottles of paint here. You can get them at any craft store. Also, they got the big bottles if you want. But you can paint them any color you want or leave them natural. Like I said before, I do not paint any of the wheelbases. I'll use them, leave them natural. And then also on the center beam car, that I won't paint anything. I just leave that all natural too. But you can paint it if you want. Then also on the flat car, I don't paint anything on the flat car because it's just basically just a wheelbase. And also on the stake car, I usually don't paint the stakes or none of the dowels that go in for the load. So, but if you want, you can. I mean, it's up to you. Also, if you can also take a wood burner, and I did this on some of my trains. You can actually take a torch and burn these and put a clear finish on, and they look really nice burnt like this. Here's a box car that's burnt. I burnt a flat car right here with a torch. Now you can burn them with the wheels on or without the wheels on. But yeah, you can burn them if you like. You can have some cars burnt, some cars painted. But just use your imagination as far as painting and things like this. Now, I didn't show you us sanding this. I did this all off camera because sanding is pretty basically getting everything all nice and smooth, and it takes a little bit of time to do it, so I didn't want to film all that. But once you got it all sanded, you're going to decide whether or not you're going to paint it or not. So you don't want to put the wheels on, or you don't want to glue it before you paint it. You want to paint it before you glue it, because once you glue it, you're not going to be able to paint this very easy. So paint all the parts before you glue it. And some of these parts, like on this box car here, this box car here, part up here gets glued onto here. So you wouldn't necessarily need paint on the bottom right here. You could just glue that on there. And then on the bottom of this roof right here, the only parts you're going to paint are the parts that you see. So keep that in mind too when you're painting it. You don't have to paint everything. Like on this passenger car here, this gets glued right to the base. So you wouldn't need no paint on the bottom here. You wouldn't need, paint on here. You could just glue that there once after you paint it. So keep that in mind. You don't need paint on everything. Just like the caboose right here. Oops. The caboose. This roof gets glued onto here, so you wouldn't need no paint on the top of this piece, just on around the edges. And you wouldn't need no paint up in this area right here, because that gets glued onto here. So just keep that in mind when you're painting. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint this off camera, because the painting does take a little bit of time. My wife does it with a small little artist brush and uses all this paint. And it just takes a little bit of time to paint and let it dry. So when we get this all painted, we'll be back to show you what it looks like and what we decided as far as the paint, and then we'll go on to the next step. All right, guys, we are back. We got all the cars here painted the colors we want. The next step would be to glue everything on the wheelbase. So what we're going to do is start with this engine right here. Pretty simple. Just going to add some glue to the bottom of this base right here, this cab. And you're just going to line the cab up on the engine right here, on the base. And then what we can do is we can actually take some glue and glue this headlight in here. In the front of the engine block. Take and glue that in there. And then we can actually take and put some glue up here where the smokestack goes. We just pop that smokestack in there. Like right there. Now, we can take and put a little glue on the bottom of this engine compartment. And we're just going to center that. Like that. And kind of check things as you glue to make sure nothing's moving around. And then we're just going to put, you know, before I was telling you that you want to leave a little space here to put some glue so that it adheres to the other part really good. So we'll just put some glue right there. You can always put a little glue on this right up here. And we're just going to stick that on there. Kind of center it a little bit. After you get it on there, kind of look at it and see if you got it centered. Things are going to move around because that glue is wet, so you're going to have to check this as you go. It looks pretty good right there. Just gonna have to check it as you go to make sure things ain't moving around. Okay, as far as the coal car here, now one thing with the coal car, you want to make sure that this open area is facing the back of the engine. That's the main thing you want to do. You don't want to go backwards because it's not going to work. So we'll just put a little glue right on this bottom here. And set it right on there. Now when I glue all these tops to the wheel base, I line everything up to the front. Everything's lined right up to the front. Then I don't have to worry about where I'm putting it. And you want to keep on going back to your other parts that you glued just to make sure everything is staying straight. So this is your coal car. Now you got your box car here. You're going to do the same thing with the box. Just put a little glue right around here. You don't need a lot of glue. And again, we're going to center this box. We're going to line it right up to the front, always to the front. And then we're going to put a little glue here. And then we're just going to set this roof on here. Kind of line it up the best you can. And we're always going to go back and check. Make sure nothing moved. Like on this engine right here. You want to check to make sure nothing moved too far out of whack. Now we'll go to this gondola car. Same thing. Put a little glue on that. And you're going to line it up to the front. And that should be fine for that. Okay, here's a center beam car. Now what we can do is these tie downs that are on the side right here, we just quick glue them in. Just stick a little glue inside there. And stick that one in. And put that one in. Center beam car, same thing. Little glue on there. I always line it up to the front. Always line it up to the front of your car right here. And we can leave that car sit. And always go back to your other cars and make sure things didn't move around. Make some adjustments if you have to. Now we go to the tanker car. What we're going to do is put a little glue in this hole for the top of the tank stack here, the cap, top of the cap. Just stick some in there. We're just going to run that down inside there. Okay, so that one, we're going to let that dry a little bit on that one. Here's the flat car. We're going to glue these tie downs in. One right there. One right there. Glue them tie downs in. And now that is pretty much all for the flat car because nothing goes on that one. And let's go to the passenger car. Passenger car just basically gets some glue on this bottom piece right here. And you're going to line it up to the front. And then we're going to put some glue on this. And glue the roof on. Now you're going to have to go back and check this roof as we go. Make sure nothing moves. The caboose, same thing. Put a little glue on this bottom right here. The caboose though, the caboose gets centered in the wheelbase, gets centered. Instead of bringing it all the way up to the front, it gets centered in the middle. And then we're going to put some glue on here. Put that roof on there. Now I'm going to put a little bit of glue down inside this hole here. Hopefully you can see that, but I'm going to stick this Now you're gonna have to double check this as you go, so things don't move around on you. That looks pretty good. As far as the stake car, what you're going to do is you're going to glue all these stakes in. We're just going to put a little glue let me see what's here. Okay, so we put a little glue in each one of them holes, and we're just going to twist these stakes in here. Now make sure if any glue happens to squeeze out, you clean it up. Okay, so, and then one thing I like to do is stick one of these dowels in here to kind of keep things straight. To straighten up the dowels. Okay, so we have them dowels in there, glued up really nice. That takes care of that. And go back and double check all your other cars and make sure things didn't move on you. And your engine, just make sure things didn't get all crazy on you. Should be pretty good. Now as far as the tanker right here, we got to sand a little bit of this bump off of here. I noticed it came through a little bit. So I'm gonna sand this off a little bit. Let me grab my sandpaper here. I'm just going to run this on this board here, the sandpaper, just to all right, so we have that flush right there in there. We're just going to glue that tanker on there. And the tanker, again, gets lined up to the front. And we'll let that set. And that should be about it as far as gluing everything together. You want to make sure to double check everything as you do it so nothing moves on you. Because that glue, it's kind of slippery, it will your parts may move around a little bit. So you want to just double check everything to make sure everything is staying put where you want it. So we got that. I think everything is good to go. So we're going to let this all dry. We'll be back to get the wheels and this little hitch that goes on each car right here. We're going to get the wheels and this little hitch that goes on, get that glued in, and we should be pretty much done with this 10-car train. So we'll let all this dry, and then we'll get everything else, come back, do the wheels and that little hitch. So we'll see you in a little bit. Hey guys, we are back. We got everything laid out here ready to put the wheels on. What I did off camera before I set these out, after everything was dried up, all the car parts were dried on the cars, what I did was take this clear coat spray and I sprayed all the cars with this clear coat. Kind of shines them up a little bit, kind of makes them look nice. You want to do that before you put the wheels on. At least that's what I do. I do it before I put the wheels on. So everything's all sprayed, painted, looks good. We're going to start putting the wheels on. Pretty simple. What I do is take a 1/4-inch dowel, because the wheels that I use for this train, they're 1.25 inch diameter wheels with a 1/4-inch hole. And I'll put a link below, like I've said several times, of where I get all these toy parts. And what I do is I use a 1/4-inch dowel, and I just cut a piece of dowel off of that, a piece off there. I cut it a little longer than what I need. Actually, you know, way longer than what I really need for an axle, because this engine takes 3 axles. And then what I'll do is I will just take a wheel here and stick it on the axle here, because I want to figure out what length of axles I need for this train. So I'll just take this wheel, stick it on the end of that dowel, stick it in there, and then I'll take another wheel and slide it on that dowel like that. Now I basically have the 2 wheels on the front. Now I'm just going to take my pencil here, and I'm just going to mark that dowel about where I need it. See, now I got a mark on that dowel right there with a pencil. I don't know if you can see it. Hopefully you can see it. I got a mark on that dowel right there. I'm going to cut that dowel to that length. Now you can use your scroll saw. I use a bandsaw, and I cut. You're going to need a lot of dowels, axles for this train. So I'll cut one like that. And then after I get it cut, and I have some cut here, after I have it cut to the size I think I need it, I'll go ahead and I'll stick another wheel on. That wheel sticks. I'll put a wheel on. I'll put it in the train car, and then I'll stick another wheel on the other side. Now, you want to make sure you got a little bit of a space so your wheels actually turn. See that or not? But that's pretty good. So that tells me that axle is the right size that I need for that car. So what I'll do is I will go to my bandsaw or scroll saw, however you want to cut these, and cut a whole bunch of them to that length that I need. Once I got a bunch of them cut to that length, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to get some glue here. I'm going to show you what we're going to do here. We'll get some glue, and put some glue on the middle of that wheel, right in the hole right there. Slide that on the dowel. And if you're making a whole bunch of these trains, what you can do is just glue a whole bunch of these dowels up with one wheel on one side. Then you can come back and put them all in and put the other wheel on. But you glue one wheel on like that. You're going to put that in the car. And then all you're going to do is grab another wheel. Stick a little glue on there inside that hole. And you're going to run that wheel on there. Now sometimes you can put a little glue on the axle if you want. You don't want to put too much. But you put that wheel on there and get it set. And you're just going to let that dry like that. And then wheels will dry on there really hard, and you're going to do that. You're going to do that to all these cars. You're going to cut a whole bunch of dowels to the length that you need, and then you're just going to start adding all the wheels on these cars. So what I'm going to do off camera, because this is going to take some time, we're going to put all these wheels on these cars. And then we're going to be back with all the wheels on, and then we're going to talk about some other stuff here. Another thing, what you do, once you put the wheels on, another thing you can do is this little axle peg that goes in the back. That's actually a hitch. You can actually glue that too. So we just put a little glue inside that hole here. And we're just going to glue that on a little bit. You might need to wipe that dowel off because it's gonna push some of that glue out. But just glue that axle peg in there. Like that. So you'll end up gluing the axle peg and all the wheels on these cars. And then you should be pretty much done. So that's what we're gonna do off camera. And then we'll be back to talk a little bit more about what we all did. And I got a few things I want to talk about, but let me get all the wheels put on here and we should be good to go. All right, guys, we are back. The train is officially done. Wheels are on. Hitches are all glued in. I just want to go over a few things. First off, when you're cutting your wheel blocks, and I know I probably mentioned this, when you cut your wheel blocks, make sure you find the exact center to cut down where you make that notch, because you want a nice fit of the two cars together right down the middle. That's very important. Find the center, and that's where you make your notch. 1 inch in. Holes. The reason why I put the holes down towards the bottom is because that's the size of wheel I'm using. If I would put the hole in the middle of the block, I wouldn't have much area in the bottom right here for the wheel to turn. So I put the holes down towards the bottom so I have more of the wheel exposed to the ground here. But that's up to you, whatever size of wheel you want to use. These are 1.25 inches. You could use bigger wheels if you want, and then you could just put the axle holes right in the middle of your block. Like I said, these are 1.25" with 1/4" holes. One thing to remember when you're doing your coal car behind the engine, make sure this open area of the coal car is facing the back of the engine. It's pretty easy to get wrong if you glue this on wrong. Well, now that's not going to work, because then you're going to end up like this. So you need to make sure that this opening is to the back of the engine, so it hooks up like that. As far as the loads go for these cars, these dowels for the state car, these are 1/2" dowels by 4 inches long. They fit in there nice. You could put sticks in there. You could put anything you want that fits in there. I know I didn't give you very good measurements as far as the stakes, but the car is only 1.5 inches wide, so that pretty much limits to how much the width you can put with stakes. So you're going to have to figure that out, because I don't have a plan or blueprint for this pattern. So just kind of work that out. You don't need 4 stakes on each side. You could go with 3 if you want. As far as the center beam car goes, there's a load that fits in the center beam. These little pieces fit down inside the center beam right here. You can just cut them from your 2x4, cut pieces that fit. You want to make sure that, say you have 2 or 3 of these cars, and you cut a bunch of these pieces that fit down in here. You want to make sure they fit in all the cars, because if a kid dumps out all these pieces and tries them in another center beam car, you want to make sure they all fit. So kind of keep that in mind when you're cutting the size of these pieces to fit inside here. Make them so they fit in all the cars. Make sure you put these tie down pieces on your cars, like the flat car, so the rubber band can go around to hold your load like that. You can do that on your flat. You can do that on your center beam car here. You can put a rubber band around here to hold that load in. So make sure you put them tie downs on the sides of the car. As far as painting, make sure you paint everything before you glue it. Makes it a lot easier painting these parts before you glue them actually on the wheel bases. Any color, you could burn some, whatever. After I paint them, before I put the wheels on, I take and I spray this clear on the cars. That kind of cleans them up a little bit, kind of shines them up. And after that, you can stick your wheels on. One thing I want to say about the wheels, as far as the dowels go, I like to buy my wheels and my dowels from the same place, because they don't always all fit on. Some dowels, they're 1/4" dowels, but it doesn't mean they fit in a 1/4" hole. They vary a little bit. So as you're putting these wheels on, some wheels may slide on really easy. Some you might have to pound on with a hammer a little bit to get them on. It just depends on your dowel, depends on your wheel. If you order wheels, they're not all going to be the same. I mean, they're all going to be 1/4" holes, but they might vary a little bit here and there, because they're mass produced. So your dowels, I like to buy them the same place to buy my wheels, but if not, you might run into a situation where the dowel is a little bit tight, and you might have to pound that wheel on with a hammer when you go to glue it on. Other than that, I think we're pretty much set as far as this train goes. Pretty easy project. Now, this is the 3rd video, part 3. It's about an hour each video. It doesn't take 3 hours to make this train. I did a lot of talking, explaining things. It's very, very quick to make this train. Another thing too, templates and setup blocks. Very important. You want to make sure you got setup blocks, templates, things like that. Makes it really quick and tracing and laying out your car. All these templates and tracing blocks here with the holes lined up. If you're going to make a bunch of these trains, it's a lot better having all these templates and blocks to set up your tools and your bandsaw and stuff, so you don't have to do a lot of measuring every time you want to make a train. I can whip these trains out pretty quick if I want to. I usually make 10 of these trains at once. That's 100 cars. And it really don't take that long to make, but it's a lot of work, a lot of wheels, a lot of sanding, a lot of cutting. But with these setup blocks, makes things a lot easier to set your tools up. So keep that in mind. It's a fun project. Another thing I want to quick mention here, these trains hooked together using these, what is it, 7/32 by 1.25" axle pegs, and you'll see them on that website that I'm going to put links below. But when you hook these cars together and they go into the hole like this, you want to make sure that the hole that it's going into, it's big enough to where you don't have to fight to get the thing in. See, I'm just picking up this engine here and putting it in that hole. It's really easy. You want to make sure that is not tight, because a kid might try to twist and break, try to get that out. So you want to make sure that is. Now, I found, because when I make these blocks, I drill this hole. I drill this hole the same size. I drill them so these axle pegs fit in this hole snug, so I can glue these axle pegs in. But the other side doesn't get the axle peg. So what I do to make that nice and loose like this, I went and bought me a rat tail file here, and it's a 1/4" file, a rat tail, and I just stuck it in my drill here. I stuck it in my drill, and what I do, after I got all the train all glued and painted and put together, I'll just double check this hole right here. I'll just run that in there. Just kind of ream that hole out just a little bit. You want that axle peg to fit in that hole. You want to be able to just set your car on there, and it sets right in there, and take it right off. Same thing with any car. You want to make sure that any car just fits in there, and you can take it right off. Because you don't want the child to fight trying to get that car off that other car. You want to make sure they fit nice. So keep that in mind too. That hole needs to be reamed out just a little bit so it fits together nice. Hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, give me a thumbs up if you like the video. If you have any questions, email me, or ask a question there in the comment section. But other than that, go to part 1, part 2, part 3. You'll have this train made in no time. So we'll see you on the next video here. Hopefully you like this video. I know it's long. I know some of my videos are long, but I wanted to explain to you step by step on how to do this train, because it's really easy to do, but I wanted you to see exactly how I do it. So we'll see you next time.